It happens again during the toasts.
Erica, the always serious maid of honor studying for her PhD in chemistry, whom you've known since her childhood, stands up to toast the bride and groom and delivers a 10-minute speech from memory that is both funny and heartfelt, dazzling the room and taking the wedding vibe to another level.
As you applaud Erica, you turn to the people at your table, all of you thinking the same thing. Who knew Erica was so funny? The scene is a staple of comedies and thrillers. It's the big reveal where we discover that a heretofore unimpressive character has abilities we never suspected. It's learning that Marissa Tomei's character in My Cousin Vinny, the sneaky, smart, and competent Monica Vito, knows a lot about cars. These are movie scenes we can watch repeatedly because they provide such satisfying closure. We are happy to see the character's excellence revealed, perhaps envying that their special quality is finally known to all. I suspect a lot of us feel that way. We yearn for our specialness to be known. But first we have to identify the special skills and personality traits that very few people know about us. Do this. What about you, when finally out in the open, would surprise people and leave them thinking, who knew? Maybe it's your world-class collection of arts and crafts pottery, or that you volunteer at a soup kitchen every Sunday, or that your poetry has been published in serious journals, or that you know how to write code, or that you win your age group at National Masters Swimming Championships. Maybe you're like Ed and Erica, you dance well or can deliver a toast like a professional stand-up, and simply needed a wedding for your big reveal.
My point is, once revealed, you're who knew. Quality is an eye-opening experience for other people who thought they knew you, leaving them to infer that you have hidden depths of passion, commitment, and resourcefulness, that you're more capable than they thought.
It elevates your credibility in their eyes. It's the ideal net result. You are earning credibility. Now extend this exercise to the workplace. What is the big reveal? Your who knew quality that would raise your credibility among your peers and bosses. If everyone knew, what positive difference would it make in your life? Why are you hiding it? Oceanofpdf.com. Chapter 15. Singular empathy. Empathy is the second deeply personal quality that shapes our ability to make a positive impact. Empathy is the act of experiencing what other people are feeling or thinking. A German philosopher created the term in 1873, from the word einflung, for feeling into, and that's how we think of it nowadays. We feel our way into other people's emotions and situations. One of the most important qualities of living an earned life is building positive relationships, hence the, did I do my best to maintain relationships? Question in the LPR, empathy, I think we all can admit, is one of the most important variables in building relationships. Like most things that matter, it is a discipline that must be learned. Whereas credibility helps us influence others, empathy helps us build positive relationships, but both serve the same purpose, making a positive difference. We tend to think of empathy as a good thing. What's wrong with being alert to the suffering of others and showing concern? But empathy is not only about feeling another person's pain. It's more complicated than that. Empathy is a highly adaptable human response, changing with each situation. Sometimes we feel it in our head. Sometimes we express it directly from the heart. Sometimes it can overwhelm us physically, rendering us powerless. Sometimes we express empathy through our impulse to do something. Our empathy shifts shapes as the situation shifts. My favorite, because it's most useful for a coach, is the empathy of understanding, whereby we understand why and how other people think and feel the way that they do. I've heard it called cognitive empathy, suggesting that we are capable of occupying the same headspace as another person. We understand the other person's motivations. We can predict how they'll react to a decision. Cognitive empathy is why married couples and longtime partners can finish each other's sentences. It's the secret skill that great salespeople rely on to meet their customers' needs, and why a great salesperson's truest boast is, I know my customers. It's the keen understanding, often acquired through market research and product testing, that effective advertisers employ to create messaging that makes us want to buy their products, usually in ways we're not aware of. This type of manipulation, taken too far, calls up the dark side of the empathy of understanding. It's how sinister political actors, understanding the biases and grievances of the citizenry, can sway people to create socio-political turmoil and revolution. It's also a reminder that we humans have been underestimating empathy's power, in all its forms, for centuries. We also possess an empathy of feeling, experiencing the emotional state of the other person. It's the empathy we display when we replicate within ourselves the feeling of another person, usually to communicate to that person some variation of either, I feel your pain, or, I am happy for you. It is a powerful force within us. Brain studies of people's reactions to emotional events have shown that rabid sports fans in the United States can experience as intense a joy at seeing their football team score a touchdown as the joy felt by the player who actually scored the touchdown. It's why we cry or laugh while watching movie characters that we know are only acting. When the character on screen is excited or scared, we are excited or scared. It's why we are comforted by a medical doctor's so-called bedside manner. Through the doctor's replication of what we're feeling, we learn that we are not alone in our fear or suffering. Parents may feel this form of empathy most intensely, not always with positive effect. I once asked my neighbor Jim, the father of 5, why he seemed downcast whenever I saw him. He said, as a father, I can only be as happy as my least happy child. That's the risk that comes with the empathy of feeling. We can feel too much, to the point where we get lost in another's pain and are hurting rather than helping ourselves as well as the object of our concern. We can reduce this particular risk, says the French empathy expert Hortense Legentil, with a well-intended come-and-go strategy. By all means, share the other person's feelings, she says, but do not stay too long at the party. Join in and then get out. A more subtle form of empathy appears when we feel concern for the other person's reaction to an event. This empathy of caring differs from the empathy of feeling in one important way. It is caused by concern for the person's reaction to the event, not the event itself.
For example, one of the other fathers at your daughter's soccer team game might feel joy when the team scores, whether his daughter or someone else was responsible for the goal. The goal is a happy event, whereas you might feel joy only at seeing how happy the goal made your daughter feel, not the event but her reaction to the happy event. In the empathy of caring, you are happy or sad because the person is happy or sad, not because the situation is a happy or sad occasion.
Family events elicit the empathy of caring all the time. If we enjoy ourselves immensely at a dinner but the evening ends with our spouse upset about something that happened at the party, our pleasure tends to be immediately overwhelmed by our spouse's distress. We are naturally inclined to empathize with our spouse's pain, because who wants a husband, wife, or partner who doesn't care? People in customer-facing businesses are particularly adroit at the empathy of caring, displaying a concern for the customer's displeasure after a mishap rather than the mishap itself. Customers appreciate the empathic gesture. They will forgive almost any error if they see that you care enough about them to fix it. The most effective empathic gesture is the empathy of doing, when you go beyond understanding, feeling, and caring and actually take action to make a difference. It's the extra step, always exacting a cost in some way, that few of us are willing to take. And even when we do act on our empathic feelings, our well-intended actions can be excessive rather than a positive difference maker. When I told my client Joan, a wealthy matriarch of an old money East Coast dynasty who does an amazing amount of good work for her community and never talks about it, how much I admired her as a positive role model for the empathy of doing, she graciously demurred. If I'm not careful, I become a fixer. I care too much, then I do too much. So I try to solve other people's problems rather than let them learn from their mistakes and fix it themselves. I become their crutch and end up making them more dependent.
We experience these types of empathy in myriad situations. When we are overwhelmed with concern for society's disadvantage, when we're alarmed by the choices others make because we've been there, done that, when we employ our understanding of people to get in our way, when we mimic another person's physical discomfort, e.g., copying someone's itch, scratching, or stuttering, when we perfectly comprehend a person's emotional struggle because we remember when it happened to us, and so on.
We have the opportunity to be empathic dozens of times a day, and each time is an opportunity to display empathy either well or poorly. If you've ever come home and neglected your family members because you were still preoccupied with the empathic emotions you felt upon listening to a colleague's problems, you've seen the hazards of empathy overdone or done poorly. This is the persistent argument the Yale philosophy professor Paul Bloom makes in his provocatively titled 2019 book, Against Empathy. Bloom writes, for just about any human capacity, you can assess the pros and cons. And then he proceeds to highlight empathy's many cons. For example, empathy is biased. We tend to bestow it on those who look like us, who are attractive and who are non-threatening and familiar. Bloom eagerly points out that he is not against compassion, concern, kindness, love, and morality. He's all in if that's how empathy is defined. Bloom is against empathy when it is not supported by reason and disciplined thinking, when it reflects our short-sighted and emotionally coerced responses. I'm inclined to agree with Professor Bloom. If empathy is the capacity to walk a mile in another person's shoes, we might reasonably ask, why stop after a mile? Why not 2 miles? Why not forever? This is one of my bones to pick with empathy. For a personal quality bathed in such a brilliant glow of goodness, empathy certainly has a way of making us feel bad about ourselves. It asks too much of us. We feel guilty when we can't summon empathy for someone's suffering.
We feel like a phony after we have parted from the object of our empathy and, no longer in their presence, have shed what we felt, as if we had been play acting at empathy, being performatively empathic but not authentically so.
When do we get relief from the burden of being empathic? But I do not want to allow such criticisms to obscure why I regard empathy as a requirement for achieving an earned life. It is not because it makes us more compassionate, moral, or kind, although those are laudable impulses. For my purposes, empathy has few if any equals in reinforcing the paradigm we introduced in Chapter 1, every breath I take is a new me, reminding us that we are an endless series of old and new versions of ourselves. Empathy's greatest utility is how effectively it reminds us to be present. I met a speechwriter for a well-known political figure some years ago. He also published fiction and nonfiction under his own name, but when he was wordsmithing for the politician, he said he assumed the role of professional empathist. I was impressed by the professional characterization. He regarded the empathy he brought to speechwriting as a discrete skill that would occupy his thoughts and emotions while he was executing the task and then easily be dropped when the job was done. He was being a total pro, doing whatever it took to do the job and then moving on. He admired the politician and agreed with him on policy and history, those were givens. He described writing in another person's voice as an act of maximum generosity. He subsumed his personality and wrote with the client's voice and speech patterns in his ears. He said, "When I'm on the clock, every idea and every good line I have goes to the client. I don't keep a nice turn of phrase for myself to use in my own writing. It has to go into the speech." After he hands in a draft and the politician makes changes and delivers the speech, he said, "I totally forget what I wrote, as if I had been typing in a trance and then snapped out of it so I can move on to my own stuff." The writer was describing a form of empathy most useful for achieving an earned life.
While he was locked into the client's brain and staying on task, the writer was exhibiting the empathy of understanding and feeling.
Afterward, he could let go of any empathic feelings. He didn't permit them to spill over into the next episode of his ongoing life. Those feelings belonged to the old him. The new him had something new to earn. In a word, he was achieving a rare state that all of us wish we could reach more often. He was being present. The actor and singer Telly Leung perfectly describes the mental process of compartmentalizing our empathy and being present. Telly was the star of the long-running Broadway hit Aladdin for 2 years straight.
Talking about how he maintained his motivation and energy 8 times a week for 2 years as the title character in a physically demanding production, he broke down his empathy into 2 parts.
First, there was his emotional empathy with the audience watching him perform. Telly said, "I was a little 8-year-old boy the first time I saw a play. I was mesmerized by the music, the singing, the dancing, and the joy. I carry the memory of that experience with me to every performance. When I go out on that Broadway stage, I think of little Telly, and imagine the emotions of some 8-year-old boy or girl sitting in the audience that night. I want that young person to feel what I felt. Every night, I tell myself, this show is for you." Second is what Telly calls authentic empathy, a respect for his colleagues when they're performing together. It's a display of professionalism that keeps him focused and in character for every moment of each performance. An actor trying to do his best on stage cannot afford to check out mentally or emotionally for a single second. In the 2 hours I was on stage in the role of Aladdin, Telly told me, I had to demonstrate many extremely different emotional reactions. I had to be happy, sad, in love, rejected, serious, lighthearted, angry, and funny. I had to connect emotionally with the other actors. I had to demonstrate empathy for them every second I was on stage. Every night I had to fall in love with Princess Jasmine, and I did. When the curtain fell, I immediately shut that feeling down until the next show. Then I went home where I could resume being in love with my husband. I cannot improve on Telly's definition. Authentic empathy, he says, is doing your best to be the person you need to be for the people who are with you now.
Whatever the terminology, whether the empathy is professional or authentic, the speechwriter and actor are asking the same thing of us. Are we displaying and experiencing empathy the only time it can create a positive impact, namely, when it matters in the moment?
I prefer the term singular empathy not only because it focuses our concern on a single person or situation, but also because it reminds us that each discrete opportunity to display our empathic powers is a unique and exceptional event. Singular empathy is unique to the moment, it changes with each situation. Sometimes it resembles the empathy of understanding, other times the empathy of feeling, caring, or doing.
The only constant with singular empathy is how it concentrates our attention on a single moment and therefore makes it singular for all involved.
When you demonstrate singular empathy, you cannot be inauthentic. You are not disrespecting other people from other previous moments in your life, immediate or long ago. You are demonstrating empathy to the only people who can appreciate it, The people who are with you now. If I could have only one index card to carry with me for the rest of my life, so I could look at it any time of day as a reminder of how I should behave to achieve an earned life, this would be the message I would write on it. Asterisk. Am I being the person I want to be right now? Do this once with an affirmative answer and you'll discover that you have earned the moment. Do this habitually and continually and you will create a string of many earned moments, stretching from days into months into years, that add up to an earned life. Skip notes. Asterisk. All credit for this idea goes to my friend and 100 Coaches member, Carol Kaufman. Thank you, Carol. Oceanofpdf.com. Coda. After the victory lap. If you are a weekend guest at my friend Leo's house, you will eat well. Leo will ask you beforehand what you like to drink and what kind of food doesn't appeal to you, as if you were the maitre d', handing out the menus and inquiring about the patron's preferences and food allergies at a fine dining establishment. Leo learned to cook in his early 30s when he removed himself from the labor market to stay at home taking care of his 3 young daughters while his wife, Robin, returned to work as a bookkeeper.
After 5 years as a stay-at-home father, Leo joined a former colleague who was starting up a private equity firm, and remained as the firm's COO for 30 years.
He worked hard, did very well, but never gave up his role as the family cook. Leo is not ostentatious about his cooking. I've never heard him describe himself as a foodie. Only friends and family who dine at Leo's table know that cooking is his big reveal. Leo's friends take his excellence at the stove for granted by now, though I doubt Leo is aware of it. If you're lucky to visit Leo and Robin for a few days at one of their many homes, you'll see how quietly industrious he is at feeding everyone. Leo is not an instinctive cook who can whip up a marvelous meal out of a hodgepodge of ingredients, like a contestant on Iron Chef.
He scours cookbooks for recipes, knows what will work for him, and always follows a recipe to the letter. No freelance creativity allowed.
Recipes that please the palate are kept in a 3-ring binder that Leo consults before a meal. He plans dinners for the week, shops for all the ingredients, and prepares as much as he can in his spare time. Somehow, each meal seems better than the last. After all these years at the stove, Leo is improving.
The amazing thing about Leo is that, except when he's away from home or dining out, he does this every day, whether it's a quick meal for Robin and himself or a Thanksgiving dinner with his entire family.
Cooking is not a pursuit that Leo is realizing as a checked-off bucket list item that he's always wanted to do when he had the time.
Leo cooked when he didn't have a job, continued when he returned to work, and didn't stop when he got really busy managing 40 people and an international portfolio of investments.
Leo the cook is not a metaphor for the idea of an earned life. Leo the cook is the essence of the earned life in all its mundane magnificence. When he wakes up in the morning, Leo is a cook. He cooks a great meal. He serves it to guests. People experience pleasure, sometimes delight. Leo feels validated seeing the bare plates and smiling faces around the table. When he wakes up the next morning, he's still a cook. He does it again. Perhaps there is a moment after it's all over when Leo reflects with Robin about the meal. That went well, they might agree. But that is as much of a victory lap that Leo is willing to take. He accepts that such satisfaction is fleeting. He knows he has the opportunity to earn it again with the next meal.
In this, Leo is no different from any of us who have found a calling, professional or personal or a vocational, that we can pursue with sufficient passion and purpose that we're eager to return to it each day. It could be the doctor trying to heal and alleviate the pain of 30 patients a day, then seeing another 30 patients the following day, or the dairy farmer rising at 4:30 a.m. to milk the herd every morning. There are no days off with a dairy herd, or the artisanal bread maker feeding the neighborhood with fresh loaves daily, or the empty nest mother, her grown children finally living on their own, who realizes her children will always be on her mind, that she'll never cease being a mother.
There is no victory lap for being a doctor, dairyman, bread maker, or mom, just the privilege and fulfillment of being those people and trying to do it to the best of their ability every day. We should all be so lucky.
Of the various exhortations and exercises I've offered here, I'd like to highlight 5 recurring themes, sometimes explicitly stated but always implied, that hover over each page like guardian angels of the idea of an earned life.
Each of these is readily within our control, and there are not that many things in life that we can control. The first is purpose. Anything we do is more elevated, more exciting, and more connected to who we want to become if we do it with a clearly expressed purpose. The expressed part makes a huge difference. The second is presence. This is the impossible ask, to be present with the people in our lives rather than missing in action. Although we can never achieve the summit of being present at all times, it's still the mountain we should never stop climbing. The third is community. Accomplishing something with the help of a chosen community resonates more resoundingly, affects more people, and is often an improvement on the solo act because of the contributions of the many. Would you rather be the soloist or sing with a choir behind you? The fourth is impermanence. In the grand scheme, we are here on earth for a brief moment. We are born, we get sick, we die, said Buddha, as a reminder that nothing lasts, neither our happiness nor a day nor anything else. It is all impermanent. This is not an insight meant to depress us. It's meant to inspire us to be present and find purpose in each moment. The fifth is results. This is a negative theme that reveals a positive concept, because my aim here has not been to help you become better at achieving a result. It has been to help you try your best to reach a goal.
If you try your best, you have not failed, regardless of the result.
In the end, an earned life doesn't include a trophy ceremony or permit an extended victory lap. The reward of living an earned life is being engaged in the process of constantly earning such a life. Oceanofpdf.com. To Dr. R. Roosevelt Thomas Jr., 1944-2013. For his insights and support. And Anik Lafarge for bringing us together. Oceanofpdf.com. Acknowledgements.
I would like to thank the members of the 100 Coaches community who helped shape my understanding of what an earned life can be. Adrian Gostick, Aicha Evans, Elena Love, Alan Mulally, Alex Osterwalder, Alex Pascal, Elisa Cohn, Andrew Novak, Antonio Nieto Rodriguez, Art Kleiner, Asha Keddy, Ashish Advani, Achara Jucharan, Aishay Bursell, Ben Maxwell, Ben Somartipo, Bernie Banks, Betsy Wills, Bev Wright, Beverly Kay, Bill Carrier, Bob Nelson, Bonita Thompson, Brian Underhill, Carol Kaufman, Caroline Santiago, C.B. Bowman, Charity Lumpa, Charlene Lee, Chester Elton, Chintu Patel, Chirag Patel, Chris Cappy, Chris Coffey, Claire Diaz Ortiz, Clark Callahan, Connie Deacon, Curtis Martin, Darcy Verhan, Dave Chang, David Allen, David Burkus, David Cohen, David Gallimore, David Kornberg, David Lichtenstein, David Peterson, Deanna Mulligan, Deanne Kissinger, Deborah Borg, Deepa Prahalad, Diane Ryan, Donna Arender,